Hello, the doctor and the DJ are back. We are back with season 3, a brand new season and new plans for the podcast, Amy, which includes live video as we are recording the podcast. I'm a big fan of live.
Yep, you definitely advocated for this.
I'm going to be the one to blame, where we're going to go live every, 2 weeks as we do the Doctor and the DJ
Well,
podcast.
that's the goal.
That's the goal. And the irony is, as we go through this podcast and go through this season, we're actually talking about having goals and how to get through this life. And we're back. We're recording our podcast live on YouTube as well as behind the scenes live on Instagram. So follow at the Doctor and the DJs, and then check the show notes to find out how to watch live if you're listening to the podcast. And Amy, we're rethinking, responding, relaunching our podcast around the idea that got us here in the first place. We have a whole community of people who are in or heading into midlife, and we finally admitted that we are also in the midlife. I think first you have to admit, and then you have to do something about it. So everyone's freaking the fuck out, and we want to interrupt all that. So This podcast is going to be all about that. And we have specific guests, specific subjects as we go down the road of this podcast. But right now, this is kind of the first intro to a lot of people and reintroduction of the podcast.
Yeah, well, the irony is that launching this podcast was literally a microcosm of the shit show that is our life. And, a lot of people would ask, when are you coming back? And we took a very long hiatus, but quite frankly, we couldn't do it anymore. It was just that one extra thing. And we wanted to rethink it, and not just do it because it was in our calendar. Does that make sense? Like, how many things do we just do because they're in our calendar and you stop thinking about them? So we wanted to think about it.
Yeah, and the truth is we're all just kind of up to our ears in a ton of shit. Just like so many things are happening in everybody's lives right now. And I feel it every day on the air. You feel it in your practice. We feel it in our home. We feel it in our friends' words. There's a lot going on. You have this existential dread. We've had these fires here. By the way, hoodie weather is back, and I am so excited.
I have a jacket on. I was very excited.
I love it so much. My wardrobe just increased tenfold as soon as the
rain hit.
The rain hit. I was like, oh yeah, I got days of this. But we have this existential dread over us. We have these individual things happening in our lives. A lot of days you don't even know what you're doing or why you're doing it. For us, like leading up to this podcast, swear to God, our producer, Pat, he's in Florida. Now he's on the west coast of Florida right now visiting family. There's a hurricane. So he's okay. And they were able to get out of the flooding and the surge. So that's happening. At the same time, our dog went into surgery yesterday.
Right. So our dog is coned out, drugged out, and we didn't have a producer. And our kid isn't in summer camp.
But good news, he's the one upstairs right now watching the dog with the cone on her head after the surgery while our parents do the podcast. Would have been easy to cancel this, right? Like, that's what we do. We tend to cancel and sacrifice things we want to do and love for these things that are happening. But you have the dog. Anyone who follows, we own a bar, okay? Life on Mars. I didn't post much about this because I want you to come to the bar, and I'm scared you're going to think if you do, lightning's going to hit you and you're going to die. Because we have it as a business owner, we've had some things happen to us, and we had another flood.
We had another flood 3 days ago. 3 days ago, we wake up to the texts and the emails and the Slack, and we're like,
I thought it was a pipe, but it's better than that. It's our HVAC system flooding. So our air conditioner went out. I don't know if you knew this, but it was real hot. And so anyway, that happened, right? And so you have all this happening. This is what I'm saying.
But it's not just us.
Yeah.
We're giving you these examples, but we are fully aware this isn't just us. This is all of y'all.
Yeah.
And if it's not, I want to know what your secret is.
Yeah,
do you just stay home and not go out?
Well, that's the thing. If you again, and now and this is what we want to talk about. If you're going along in your everyday life and you're in a job you don't love, or in a routine you're not a huge fan of, but then you don't risk anything. So all the things, even this podcast, is a risk to do all this, to set all this up and to go live and to have something on our very busy calendar that we're going to somehow get in there, is a risk. And so is it worth it is one of the questions we are asked. We are asked constantly. In fact, I would say a few times recently, we've been told we're robots. So I thought it's important during this to prove that we are not robots.
Yep.
That
no chat GPT podcast going on over here.
We absolutely are affected by the things that we create, and we are doing maybe too much at times. I would agree. And for me, for instance, to go from exposing like my thoughts and my creativity on the air early in the morning to then moving into another thing off the air, to the bar, to this podcast, to the parenting, to my marriage, to my friendships, is a lot. And it would be easier not to do those things. So what we're trying to say is, okay, what if you do those things? What if you do take those risks? And what if you do own that those risks will come with some
complete shit show?
Yeah, like we were just talking about this off the air. I was just talking about since my entire adult life, I've been told doing my radio show, I've been told once a week, on average, you, my friend, suck. You don't do it that way. That's basically the message. Like, you aren't doing it the way it's supposed to be. So you have these armchair critics who are telling me how to do something I've done all my life. And it took me a long time to come to terms with that and to understand that they are on the sidelines and they may not even know they're doing it. It might be you. You might be listening right now like, do I do that? Do I criticize others? And when they put themselves out there, do I make fun of people? Do I like, am I unkind to people who put themselves in a creative world, or people who have fame, or people who have money, or whatever it might be? Do I criticize them?
Well, I would say that if you do, and I teach this a lot in a lot of the workshops I lead, you need to look inside yourself and ask the question, do you feel jealous? Do you feel jealous? And it doesn't have to be like, oh, I wish I had a podcast. I'm just using the podcast as an example, because maybe you're like, fuck that, I don't want a podcast.
Yeah, it's a lot
you're
of work.
like, I definitely don't have a podcast. Don't ever want one. Thank you. You don't have to have one.
No.
But the point being, there's something about it. There's something about self-expression and taking a risk. And maybe you're someone who is scared of self-expression or being your true self or taking a risk. And so ask yourself those questions. And you certainly don't have to. No one's going to make you do anything. But I think that in midlife, people will talk about a midlife crisis. And I think it's stemming from acting a way through your life you thought you were supposed to. And maybe that came from you. Maybe that came from your family of origin. Maybe that came from society, wherever it came from. You've just been kind of going along, doing the things that you thought you wanted and you thought you were going to do. And then you wake up one day and you're like, this is not my life. This is not my beautiful house, right? Like the Talking Head song. That you start to question your purpose, maybe. You start to question everything. Interrupted. That's what we're doing.
So it's coming back to question your own beliefs.
Right.
Yes.
And then if you do take that risk to do something differently, there's that fear of people dragging you down or criticism or not understanding. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's rules. Like, people are following the rules of life. And if you maybe question those rules, like we question them in every part of our life. So there's rules on everything. I didn't grow up in a religious family. You grew up in a Mormon family. They have lots of rules.
So many rules.
There's rules, and there's magic underwear. There's just a lot.
We don't need to go through it all.
And so
plenty of time.
I didn't have to deal with those rules, but there's different rules. Like when I even getting into radio, getting back to that, there are certain rules on how you be a DJ, how you program music, how you talk on the radio, how you do that. So I didn't know I was breaking the rules when I started talking about grief. I didn't know I was breaking the rules when I wasn't public radio enough but I wasn't commercial radio enough. Like, well, I'm just being me, and I think I might be okay at this, and people seem to respond, but I had to wade through like public shaming of me with my show and how I was doing it and how I was affecting people. I couldn't understand why people were a very small group of very loud, very mad at you. So those people stop you from doing what you want to do, right? You have to give yourself space. And I see on our Instagram, the hardest thing is learning to give yourself grace. Agreed. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. I took me a long time to get there, Amy. And what we're trying to say, and what we will be saying throughout this season of the podcast, and having guests on as well who will be talking about this, is how are we going to live this life? Seriously.
No, I say this all the time. Like I can get really impatient when I'm trying to support someone or help them. I'm like, well, what are we doing here? Honestly, what the fuck? If we don't go after the things that make us happy, go after the things we've always wanted to do. And that doesn't mean you have to spread yourself thin. John Richards and I, that's for me too, right? Like you have to figure out, what you want to spend your time and your energy doing, which by the way, I'm just going to give a little like lesson on time and energy in case y'all don't know about this. But when you put stuff in your Google Calendar or whatever calendar you use, the time block isn't the same as the energy block. Time and energy are different. So something that takes you a half an hour could take all of your energy. Something that takes you 3 hours could take hardly any of your energy. And how many of you are actually thinking through that when you put stuff in your calendar, right? So just think about the energy it takes and the time it takes, because I'm not advocating for spreading yourself thin. But what I am advocating for is that to say no more to things that don't light you up, kind of that saying that if it's not a hell yes, it's a no, right? If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Like if you aren't super lit up by something, maybe say no, and maybe like allow yourself some time and space to find out what is a hell yes in your life. And now's the time. I mean, midlife is the perfect time for a detour.
I had someone ask me the other day, when did you buy your bar? and I try not to be offended by it because that's a question. And it was also like I play pickleball because I am a middle-aged man. It is now required. You're actually given a paddle at a certain age and required to go. And what was I going to say? I was asked about the bar, and I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, how long has it been open? Like 10 years? Did you buy it? I said, no, because like in this group of people who were kind of new to me, some of them figured out I'm on the radio. They were more excited about the bar.
Yeah.
And you realize that's sort of like the midlife dream. You would own a bar, right?
Oh, yeah. People are like, you're a doctor. That's nice. Anyway, you own a bar?
You're on the radio. You talk to hundreds of thousands of people every week. What about the bar?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I said, no, it was a great show. When did you open it? Like 10 years ago? I said, no, 9 months for the pandemic. And that's all you have to say. I'm like, oh, my God. Why? Oh, how? It's like, yeah. And then we were at two different dinners where we were told people don't realize how hard you both work. Like, these are people in our community, right? And it was really nice of them to say that. But then we were thinking later, we're talking, you leave after hanging out with people. You're like, did you, is that what people, oh. And so you realize, John and Amy, he's got a bar, he's a doctor, guy's got his radio show. Lazy pieces of shit.
No.
So I realize you have to be vocal about what got you there. So people understand the risks and people understand you got to work at this. And people need to know that it does take work.
Yes. I also want to put in a conversation about privilege. Okay.
Absolutely.
So privilege is not a bad word. No. People are like, privilege. I don't want to talk about it. Privilege isn't a bad word. We all have privilege. All of us have some kind of privilege, right? So what I actually see, and I'm sorry, I'm calling this shit out. I see so many middle-aged, middle-class people squandering their privilege. Boom. Okay, saying it. Squandering their privilege. They have access to healthcare. They have access to all kinds of things, right? They can afford this, afford that, do this, do that. And they're not doing it, right? They're not using those resources that so many people would like love to have. So if that is you, I recommend you start taking inventory of your resources and your privilege and start using them not only for your benefit, but then the other piece, which is what can you do to help people without those resources.
That's right.
But I see it all the time. So I just want to put in a little privilege here. So yeah, I mean, John and I work very hard. We work very efficiently. That is something we have in common. We're very fast workers. But that's kind of why we do all the things we do. But we also make a lot of sacrifices, and both. Yes, there's some privilege in there.
Yeah, and then you can make a bigger, hopefully, impact on the world. And I've been trying to do that. You're trying to do that, and we have these multiple relationships. And I think for couples out there too, like we get this question: we barely can parent together, or cook a meal at the end of the day. So.
Are you cutting those up? What are you doing with that?
Is there a secret? So a bit of a relationship podcast this season too, in that, so just so you know, our relationship started in business, really.
As coworkers.
As coworkers.
Producing events.
Yeah, we produced events, and Amy and I produced events really well together. You know, we complemented one another, and Amy is an incredible planner, great mind, creative. Has a history in music as well, and degrees in music. And then I'm me with my history in music, and then just these nuts ideas. So we started like that. So for us, it's normal, right? But then our relationship, I came with a child, a 3-year-old at the time, turning 4, right? So we also started as parents together, and there's kind of a bonus to that, I would say, right? Like we kind of came into it like that. There's also the sad part where we didn't get to be, non-parent dating people who didn't have a history of work. So like
right.
both.
But I wouldn't trade it. We also are both divorced from other people.
Yeah, we have that in
so we
common,
had
too.
starter marriages.
Yeah, starter marriages. Highly recommend the starter marriage.
So, I mean, and by midlife, that might be you too, right?
Find that
in
first.
midlife, there's a lot of relationship change, a lot of people getting divorced or divorced again or remarried or whatever, or deciding that they want to change how their relationship works, opening up their marriages or opening up how they just have their dynamics all together, right? So midlife is a perfect time to rethink and reevaluate your own rules of your relationship.
Well, and we're being honest, you've still got to be a couple. I think in midlife, a lot of people are we were smart. We got divorced early, figured it out. A lot of people have gone through there. I know a lot of people in relationships right now, they're in middle age and they're looking up, and either they're no longer compatible or in love or in any way they're co-parenting. They're sort of roommates who are co-parenting, and they don't know what to do, because if you're at this point in your life, you think this is it. And I highly recommend evaluating that and really thinking about where you're at and because life is so short, but it's super long.
I would say you and I
yes
have very honest conversations that I've said this before that I think would scare or end other marriages.
Yes, I would agree.
And so I think that you and I have gotten over that terror barrier. Does that make sense? Y'all know what a terror barrier is. It's like that disabling fear that comes up when you're on the brink of something, right? And you and I have pushed through terror barrier after terror barrier after terror barrier, yes, where we have those honest conversations. And what we've figured out is what rules or what behaviors do we need to reevaluate to like just keep choosing to be together? When you say that's true.
So all your secret thoughts or fantasies or like what you want in a relationship or what you want in or out of the relationship, like any of that. We've had all of those conversations.
Every last one.
Every last one. I can't recommend it enough, but it's scary to get there, right? It's scary to get. I was in a loveless marriage. It was, I was the definition of gaslight. I realized what being gaslighted, was by being on the receiving end of that. So in my way, kind of the way I got there was I didn't have nothing to lose. Like I've already been through feeling really bad about myself, really bad about myself physically, sexually, like just not feeling good about any of that. And so as Amy and I went further down the road together, we were able to just start having real conversations because we trusted each other. And it's amazing when you start having these conversations, how much more you trust your partner. Like we had trust issues, normal jealousy issues, I mean, we're so good looking. Sorry, I couldn't resist. The joke was just sitting right there. It's not a joke though. You look very pretty. But we're like,
don't tell me how I look, John.
Sorry. Sorry. We went down this, we started going down this path of just being honest. And we had a conversation about, let's just sit down and it takes time. If you have things you're into or things in the relationship you want, it doesn't come instantly in the conversation. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot to just drop the bomb. And for yourself, I had to ease into some of these conversations. Like, here's what I'm interested in. Here's what I like. Here's,
Okay, and we're not just talking about sex.
No, the whole
Although
thing.
we are talking about that. But
the whole
if
thing.
you are going to have these conversations, don't do it when you're trying to have sex.
That's a very good point.
Don't do that. What are you doing? Like, you literally have to do it in an opposite environment of that, right? Even if you're talking about sex. Like, don't save it, like, plan it. Does that make sense? Plan ahead, not in the moment. But honestly, I mean, I don't know that you and I schedule those hard conversations. It's more like, I'm like, I got to talk to you. And you're like, uh-oh.
No. I remember, I'm not going to get into the details of it. Some of this is private, but we were at a location where we were very much alone, very much had time together.
What are you talking about? Which story? Write it on the sticky so I know what you're talking about.
I was going to talk about when we were here in that location, in that city.
Oh, okay.
So just, in Walla Walla, Washington is where you want to go to have these conversations. Okay?
That was probably our first big one.
There's a lot of wine there. It's a lot of, I'm not saying you have to. It helped me, okay, being a little shy about this. Anyway, we were Walla Walla, of all places. Again, beautiful country. Highly recommend it. When we started out, like, I just started feeling like I could talk to Amy about stuff. And I'm talking about sex, relationship, all of it. And we just kept going down this road and being very honest with each other. And I now, if you think about this, if you get to that point in your relationship, in your life, where you've said all the things, I already trust Amy, but I have absolute trust that she'll tell me anything now.
That's right.
And she knows I will, because I already have. I've already said all the things. And we're humans being real, right? It doesn't go, though, with like society, the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be, you can't have these conversations and, but that's silly to me. Anyway, this is the time. So as Amy was saying, ease into the conversations, find the right location. It's sort of, I don't want to compare it to parenting. It's like trying to
don't undermine the other person's
it's like in the middle of the
kid.
Exactly. You got to do all these things separately. That's some of the best advice I ever got. It's got to be when you're sitting down, you're alone, and you can have these conversations. Fellas, I'm talking to you mostly. We are such idiots sometimes. You'll be in it, and that's the time you choose to really start discussing these things, be it something you disagree with or the way it's being done or whatever. Take time later. I cannot stress this enough. It's one of the things I've learned.
Well, I mean, from a medical perspective, you need a nervous system that isn't in some sort of fight or flight pattern. And you need a nervous system that is sort of calm and in a relaxed state. And so that you can kind of absorb information better. Does that make sense? I would say, though, that going back to interrupting your midlife, it really takes taking a good look at your fear. Does that make sense? Like what you're afraid is going to happen if you do or don't do things. And I'm telling you that life is hard either way. Whatever you choose, life is going to be hard this way or hard that way. So which one's the harder hard? I just said that out loud. Which one's the harder hard? But I think you know what I'm saying. And so just do yourself a favor and choose the one that lights your soul up and feels true, even if it's difficult.
Well said. Yeah. So this is where we're headed with the podcast. Okay. This is just an intro. We're going to get into specifics each podcast.
We
each
have some guests.
We have some guests, some people in our world I think you'll enjoy hearing from.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing all kinds of different stuff. One of the things we will be doing as well is we're having our first ever retreat.
Woohoo!
So we finally can get out of this rainy weather that's been here for one day. No, we're going to go. This is the first time we've done this. Amy and I are hosting. We're going down to the Palm Springs area. Yes.
Desert Hot Springs.
Desert Hot Springs. And we're going down for
4 days, 3 nights.
3 nights. You're hanging out with Amy and I. You get this live. Good luck. Got the water, got the pools.
Okay. Okay. Do you want me to talk about
Yeah.
it? Water in the pools.
Yeah, the water.
The water in the pools.
Yeah, the pools. You got the food. Okay, I will say you got Joshua Tree, and I love Joshua.
Okay, here's the deal.
It's like my favorite record.
Don't worry. I'm heading up the planning of this.
That's good information. Yeah,
so you would fly into Palm Springs, just
Amy's
so you
in
know.
charge. It's probably going to be good.
Or drive there. And it's 4 days and 3 nights, and we're going to be in Desert Hot Springs. And the place that we're going to be staying, they have mineral pools. So yes, you can soak in the pools. There's also a spa there that all of our participants are going to have spa credit. And we'll be leading workshops. We will be giving you notebooks where you write down these secret thoughts. Don't worry, you can burn it later.
Don't be scared of
You
writing
can
things
burn
down.
it later.
I was scared. Now I have a notebook.
If you want to go by yourself, you're welcome to come on your own. If you have a friend, a platonic friend you want to go with, you can do that. If you want to go with a lover or 3, you can do that. But we'd love to see you there. We will also be doing a Doctor and the DJ podcast live from there. And I'm going to be taking us out, well, John too, on a hike in Joshua Tree on the full moon. And we're going to do a full moon sound bath. Yes, I said those words out loud.
Did you say full moon sound bath?
Yes, a full moon sound bath.
Do we wear clothes for that?
Yes,
Okay.
you wear clothes.
Just checking.
Anyway, and lots of amazing food and meeting other people in our community and hanging out with us.
Amy leads retreats. Okay. She's going to do a good job here. I am along for the ride and we'll be there. But don't worry, I'm not in charge of it. And I heard there's pickleball there too.
Oh, yeah.
Do I get to play pickleball? Okay.
You do. There's pickleball.
And there might be some pickleball lessons or games. But the hike at J Tree and then hanging out, and it's gonna be good. And the whole thing is like this podcast. It's this idea we had. We called it like midlife opportunity.
Yeah, midlife interrupted, midlife opportunity.
It's really admitting. I know. I was on the air today and I was celebrating the 30th anniversary of Last Splash from the Breeders, and someone wrote me from down in Austin. They're like, "You must be mistaken. That can't be 30 years old." So. And they were joking, but part of me I was thinking about this we just are in denial a little bit, and that's okay. I mean, dude, I'm out playing pickleball and running. I'm in physical therapy as an old person, training for an ultra marathon like a youngish person. Does that make sense? That I'm doing all at once. So this is what this podcast and this retreat and hopefully future retreats are going to be. We're kind of thinking about another one as well. I don't want to get too far down the road, but if this goes well, we'll see. So that's the plan. And so does this launch like wait, how can people sign up?
Oh, yeah. So here's the announcement. Here's the big announcement.
where's it
Ready?
at?
I'm going to say it. And then you're going to get an email. But I'm actually not putting the link on the Instagram. I'm not putting it like
That's right,
it goes
Amy.
into your
Boundaries.
email. And I will later. But we want to reward the people that showed up live. And we want to reward the people on our email list with being the first to know. Right? And then we let the rest of the people's know. You go to... Let's click that and make sure it works.
Which thing?
Because our person was going to put it up, but I want to make sure she got it up. You go to our website, thedoctorandthedj.com.
Hey,
Boom, it's there.
It's there. Look how pretty that is.
/retreat. doctoranddj.com/retreat.
Sweet.
All right.
It's exciting.
It is exciting.
We're trying stuff.
We're trying stuff.
We're asking you to try stuff with us. Okay. Don't give up on yourself. If you know Amy and I at all, you know we're about reminding you you're not alone, that there's a community out there, that we do believe kindness prevails, and we have to, again, getting back to that existential dread or those things in your life that are driving you. I've made it my life's work, my mission to just hopefully make people's lives just livable and a little better on the radio show. And Amy and I paired up, and we have this mission together. That's what this podcast is about. And the retreat's going to be about. That's going to be fun. She's leading it. I can't stress this enough. So you will learn things. And I'll be John interrupting, basically.
Well, I want to also just let everybody know that the retreat will have plenty of scheduled programming. Does that make sense? Like there's a schedule. And downtime.
Yeah.
So you'll have plenty of time.
Get a break.
Alone or with your partner or partners or people you want to hang out with, and you'll get plenty of time to recover. You'll have plenty of time to just not do anything if you don't want to. And by the way, of course, everything is optional. We, of course, want you to participate in all the things. But if you're just like, you know what? I just paid all this money to come down here and participate in your programs, but I'm going to hole up in my room.
I am not sound bathing with you under any moon. That's fine. Because I don't
want to.
Because I don't even know what that means. So I will be there just to learn what that means. But look, in the meantime, we're going to be here. We're going to go to Instagram Live each week. We're not doing this podcast, right? So you want to stick with at the Doctor and the DJ. You want to go to our website, sign up for the retreat, or sign up for the list so you find out about other things that we're doing as well. And in the meantime, we ask you to take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Nutrition, with movement, with sleep, with boundaries, as Amy says, with taking a break, with blocking your time, focus on work, go for a run, take at least a few days a month to turn your brain off. Don't check your emails or social media or your phone. Just don't go anywhere.
I want to talk about that.
Okay, real quick, because we're ending. What are we doing?
Oh, I just wanted to talk about the space.
Yes.
Give your brain space. Make sure that when you're putting your schedule together and your life together, that you have space that doesn't have anything scheduled. Does that make sense?
I need to do that.
Yeah. So that's one of my biggest things. And like John was saying, if you take pristine care of yourself, whatever that means to you, that is one of the best things you can do for your physical and mental health, and especially in midlife.
Just
like
space.
we can't just keep doing the same things we were doing. That's just
something's got to change, everybody. It's got to change. Just take that space. I couldn't agree with you more. I try as much as I can. This week has not been that.
Nope.
But now that the podcast, we're finished our first one, I'm going to take some space.
Are we done?
I think so. I want to thank everybody at Ruinous Media, our friends there. We hope Pat's okay. He's, again,
hunkered down in the hurricane.
Hunkering down in a hurricane currently. Big thank you to our friend Chris for stepping in and helping as always, and our friend Joe as well, and everybody at Ruinous Media. They are the people behind our podcast and are amazing humans and help us get set up. We are here broadcasting from our home, and really happy to be launching again, Amy. I'm really excited about the season and that y'all are joining us. So tell everyone you know about it. Get the podcast wherever you get the podcasts, and remember that you're not alone.
Oh, yeah. And one more thing. Friday, this recording will be launched on all the podcast platforms.
Yeah.
So Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah.
But if you want the live version, you show up Wednesday.
Yeah. but then this launches. That's kind of cool. I like it.
Bye.
Bye.